Tonight we're going to play around with the brush designer in ArtRage 5. This is the beta test of ArtRage 5, and we'll be doing really what is my first real painting with the software and just kind of see how we do. The brush designer is super cool, and all the brushes I'm going to use for today's painting were created using the brush designer. Okay. So here, just going to start by blocking in basic shapes. A little bit about how ArtRage 5 feels to paint inside of. This tool sets that you're used to are probably feel pretty similar to ArtRage 4, at least in the very short time that I've had to play with them. But this brush designer and the tools, I guess the versatility of the tools therein make ArtRage feel very different. The paint quality, the mark making, it feels a little bit more like, I guess, some custom brushes I've downloaded with Photoshop and made in Photoshop, and I think that's a really good, really good thing. I like the fluency. I like how fast it is. I like how it feels like sort of a lightweight version of the Photoshop brushes I use, and I mean that in the best possible way. I think sometimes it's fascinating how different software can just have a different tactile feel than other software. So this feels a little floaty by comparison to Photoshop. I mean, everything about it just feels really light, and could just be the way I've got it set up, but I'm digging it. So here's my very rough sketch of Danae here, and I'm gonna have to make some changes for the final drawing, but I think that's fine for now. I'm gonna get this custom brush 4, and I think, yeah, that was the one I made for kind of blocking in the big areas. Just notice how cool that brush is, the texture that you get, the variety of the mark, which is kind of like a standard feature with with ArtRage. I have it set up so that the paint actually expires on the brush, the loading of the brush, which is kind of cool. So as I'm filling in here, just wanting to show the speed at which you can work. The idea here is to block in all the dark areas as quickly as possible. Start to get a framework to look at the rest of the picture. I really like it. I think these kind of evolutions in the software are really making ArtRage stay current. A lot of what I love about Photoshop when I'm painting in Photoshop is the custom brushes, ability to make my own brushes, the ease of making my own brushes, the amazing versatility you can get in using handmade tools inside of Photoshop. And see, I'm starting to find with this brush designer that there's a similar kind of versatility. It doesn't have, at least in this beta state, every painting feature that maybe Photoshop has, but I don't think it needs to be successful at all. I think it just needs to do what it does really well, which is being a natural media painting and drawing simulator. And this helps, this brush designer and the versatility of it helps do that in an amazing way, advancing its kind of core strengths. I think this painting I'm doing right now would have been kind of cumbersome to do with the default tools. I think the brush designer has allowed me to get into a workflow that more naturally mirrors what I prefer, and and that's awesome. So there are things that I think ArtRage does that are better than Photoshop, and there are things that Photoshop does that are better than ArtRage. And to my mind, you'd be crazy not to have both. But if you could just choose one, tough call, depending on what your goals are. If you're a traditional artist and you just want like a natural media simulator, ArtRage is the way to go. It's cheap by comparison. It's amazingly versatile. You can do almost anything with it. So easy. Go for ArtRage. But if you're kind of like a working professional and you need a huge variety of things to be able to do, well, Photoshop's definitely that digital painting, multi-tool, photo editing. You can even do motion animation, stuff like that, and it's really just hugely versatile. So two different tools, two different scopes, but both really wonderful. I'm loving this. I think that I've always loved ArtRage because it felt like it's a big part of lowering the bar for entry when you trying to get people into digital painting or digital art in general. Sometimes just the user interface for something like Photoshop and then just setting up your workspace and the necessity for some custom brushes and playing with settings and stuff makes it harder to just sit down and just paint. But ArtRage is fantastic at letting you just sit down and paint, and that's what most of us artists really just want. We don't want to be fiddling with tools and stuff that's going to slow us down. I know some artists love messing around with all the intricacies of materials and softwares and prep and cleanup, but there are others of us, myself included, that really don't care a lot about that. What we're interested in is painting and getting as much time to just paint as quickly as possible. And so, to confess though, I did spend about 10 minutes maybe making these 5 brushes that I'm using today, and if I like them, I can use them for the rest of my life. So that's 10 minutes invested in what is a pretty big payout for the time that it took to create them. I love how easy this feels in ArtRage today. There's really nothing about it that's challenging. You just grab paint, put paint on canvas.